I forgot to say a few things in my last video, so let me just cover them really quickly. It's about the dragons. All the dragons that we see in the Avatar universe, the White Dragon, Radishaw, the ones in Zuko's dream, Sozin's dragon, Fang, Roku's dragon, they all have incredibly different facial features, so clearly many subspecies or species of dragons, and the dragon in um, Wan's time, the one that taught Wan firebending skills, that one clearly didn't have wings, as we saw, so maybe the dragons evolved over time during the Avatar years during in universe. Maybe over time they evolved to have wings. So who knows? Because that could have been a genetic mutation or so. But I guess maybe we'll know one day, or maybe we won't. But okay. But to the topic of this video. Azulan was born at the start of the 100-year war, I believe during Sozin's comet, and obviously Azulan's father, Firelord Sozin. Yeah, so we know that Sozin and Roku are the same age, and Roku died at the age of 70, and Aang was 12 years old when he ran away. So, and then that summer, Firelord Sozin attacked. So, Sozin would have been about 82, 83-ish, but I think closer to 82 at the start of the war. So that means he must have become Azulan's father. Azulan must have been born when Sozin was 82. Now, I think part of this was probably a mistake in the timeline by the writers because, they did make some mistakes. Like with Kyoshi, they made her 230, and they admitted that that was due to a plot error that they had made. And obviously, that probably started when, in that episode when we first see Kyoshi Island, where they mentioned that Kyoshi was born 400 years ago. So, yeah, that's a lot. So the point is, they made some mistakes with the timeline. I think they were just throwing numbers out there and they didn't quite think because 100 years is a long time. So it would have probably made more sense for Sozin to have had another child like in between Azulan, and Azulan maybe should have been his grandson instead of his son. And also remember that Roku's daughter, Raina, I think she was, yeah, so she would have to have been an adult at the time of Roku's death, I think. And I think we also see her in that episode as well. And obviously, Raina is Ursa's mother. And I guess that part kind of lines up because when Azulan dies, he's still only 95 years old, and he only dies because he's poisoned by Ozai and Ursa. And he obviously could have lived a lot longer. But the point is, Azulan was 95, and when Ursa returns to her village to find her parents, she learns that they've already passed away, which actually makes sense because Ursa's parents would have been incredibly old by that time anyway, and if what I said about Ursa's mother Rhina is true, then she would have been way past 100 and very, very old. And I'm sure they probably didn't eat or sleep very well after their daughter Ursa was taken away by the Fire Nation. So, yeah. But yeah, so basically, Sozin fathered Azulan at the age of 82. Now, obviously, like maybe the woman he was married to was younger, or maybe the queen was younger, or maybe the queen used some fertility medic was on some fertility treatments, or maybe Sozin had concubines, or maybe Sozin used a surrogate, or maybe he had his stuff frozen and then later artificially inseminated. Like who knows what happened, but I think part of it was just a mistake. But it's certainly possible to become a father at that age, and like it happens in real life as well. So there is that part aspect to it as well. Now, a general statement about some ages in Avatar. Obviously, I did a video earlier about how I personally think that Katara has many more years left because I do believe Atlu's predictions and that Katara will live to see three of her great grandchildren. And so, obviously, that would mean that Janora, Bilo, or Iki, or Rohan would have to have children, and that's probably a long time away. And of course, anyone could have triplets at any point, so who knows about that part. So yeah, Katara is 88 at the moment, and she probably still has a while longer, and Toph, I guess, has a while longer, and Zuko is only 91. Last time we see him in book 4, briefly, during Wu's coronation, and so Zuko probably has a long time because obviously his great grandfather Sozin lived to be 102, his grandfather Sozin lived to be 95, and only died because he was poisoned, and his other grandparents, Raina and the magistrate, they probably lived a very long time as well, and Roku probably could have lived a lot longer, definitely could have lived a lot longer if he hadn't died of the volcano, so Zuko is probably covered for many more years, but the point is we've seen very old people, so Guru Patik was like 150, I believe, and King Bumi was 112 years old, and still doing pretty well, so I mean, the point is, people in the Avatar universe seem to live a lot longer, but then some of them seem to live a lot shorter, so that's a very tricky situation we are in. And moving on to the avatars themselves, obviously Korra is like 21 in book 4, and like she starts out as like 17 or so in book 1, and then becomes 18, and then after book 3, and then 3 years later she's 21, obviously. But yeah, so like who knows how long she'll live, but Aang was 12 years old when he was frozen in ice, and then he came out, and 1 year later, 13, and then he lived to be up. And then at the age of 66, and really he was 166 because he had spent 100 years frozen in ice, that's when he passed away because of the immense toll that the ice, being frozen in ice, had taken on his body. And obviously, that was a long term degradation effect on the body. So there was that. Also, Avatar Roku died when he was 70, as I said, and that's only because he was at that volcano and there was toxic gas, and Sozin betrayed him and left him there, so that's why. So I would guess Roku would have, at the very least, probably made it to 102 or so. As for Avatar Kyoshi, she lived to be 230 years old. As far as we know, the oldest human in the Avatar universe. And Avatar Kuruk, he was 33 years old when he passed away because obviously fighting the dark spirits had taken a big toll on his body. And Yangche, we don't know how long she lived. Sito, we don't know that either. And some others we don't know either. And Wan seemed pretty old when he died, but he actually also didn't seem that old. Like he had white hair and a white beard, but it was clear that he wasn't like 200 years old or anything. So maybe like 80, 70, even in his 60s, maybe. I'm just guesstimating based on his appearance. So yeah, I wonder. Oh, and something that Aang mentions, which seems a little minor, but when Aang realizes that he's been out for 100 years, and then he says that he needs to clean his room because it hasn't been cleaned in 100 years, and he goes back to the air temple expecting everyone to be there, expecting all the same people to be there, and he expects Gyatso to be there, and Gyatso was very old even before that, even before he died, and Gyatso was friends with Roku, and I'm guessing Gyatso was a little younger than Roku, if not the same age. So Gyatso would be like 170 or 182 by that point. So like, and Aang was expecting Gyatso to be there. So maybe one way to explain it would be that Aang was just not thinking clearly, and he wasn't like thinking rationally about the time period. But I think another way to explain it would be that maybe people in the Avatar universe just live for super long time if they are just allowed to live, and maybe air nomads live longer. So who knows? Those are really my thoughts on this topic, and it's quite an interesting topic nonetheless.